very important part. Emer is going to present now. Welcome, Emer.
Thank you. Everyone can hear me?
Yes.
Yes, great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Noah, and thank you, everyone. I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces and some new faces, and it's really nice to do this online because then we get to have people from other countries join us as opposed to a physical event, which would have been limited to the Netherlands. So I am indeed going to give you a quick overview of the work that we're doing and why we think it's really important. And then in a while, you're going to get to meet some of the people that we work with in breakout rooms. They're here already. And then we'll come back together for looking towards the future of Designathon Works, our organization, and then we'll be closing off so that you know what to expect today. But to take a little step back as to why this work is important. So the problem that we're working on is actually broader than education. It's, in my view, how we see as society broad the child, how we see childhood and how we give children a space in the world. We don't give them very much agency at all. Whereas in fact, I want children to be co-creators for a better world. I want them to be engaged in shaping the world that they get to live in. So on a more personal level, like, have you ever had the experience of engaging with a child, really asking them, you know, what do you think about something? And then listening to them or asking them more questions about their idea so that you really want to learn from them, and then having this amazing exchange and, you know, often amazing insights or vision from a child. So those are the kind of conversations we want to be happening much more often. And as alongside listening to children, Harvard research recently showed that children between the ages of 2 and 5 actually ask about 40,000 questions. So they have this amazing wonder and engagement with the world that we want to amplify. So if we compare that to how society tends to see the child, the typical ways is more like a future adult, someone who is not yet of relevance. Or maybe it's the child in education who just needs to start digesting all the knowledge that the adults have. Or the child as a consumer. So I'm not entirely sure which is worse. And what instead of this, we started seeing children in a radically different way. If we started seeing them as engaged, creative potential, concerned citizens who have something to bring to the table, what if we started listening to them seriously? Like if we look at our climate complex and climate challenged world with so many problems, the necessity of being engaged of all of our citizens, and that alongside the fact that children, when interviewed, and UNICEF did a bunch of research in 2017, and we've researched in each of our events in the Global Children's Designathon, and then the majority of children tell us they're really concerned about these big issues. And furthermore, they actually don't believe that adults are doing enough to tackle them. So obviously we want to see a change in that situation. So having previous to this myself worked in East Africa with young people on getting them employment and improving well-being, I really wanted to take this work to a younger age level where young people are still forming their identity, cultivating essential skills, and where that creative potential is still fully available to them. So basically before they lose it at around the age of 10. And that organization would spread a new way of seeing children. And that organization is Designathon Works, where our mission is to unleash the creativity of 1 million children for them to become change makers for a better world. And I'm really honored to have been elected as a Ashoka Fellow for this work in 2016, thereby gaining access to this amazing network of worldwide social innovators and getting a lot of support on impact measurement and indeed how to go about this in a systematic fashion so that the work would really have big impact. So zooming in then a little bit, this is what it actually looks like. This is what we do with children. It's a design hackathon. It takes about 6 to 8 hours. It's for children 7 to 8 years old, and they go through a design thinking process combined with maker education. They tackle big world problems, the SDGs. They build prototypes with basic electronics, and then they present them to an audience. And I think we have a slide of showing them what that process kind of looks like on a step-to-step basis. Yeah, here you can see them in action. Kind of how this program then actually reaches children, because that's the basic methodology, is through a number of channels, partners, schools. So we start with an online design challenge on various topics, and that's where we reach the most children. And that can happen in a community center, in a family at home, via our network partners in many other countries. And then a selected group of those children go forward to the Global Children's Designathon and do the full process, exchange with each other online. And last year that was in 40 cities around the world on all continents. And in the next 2 years, we would like to establish an academy for change makers. So for a smaller subset of those children who are really seeing themselves as taking the change-making path in their lives. So I guess you probably would like to have an idea of what kind of things children actually make in these events, and it's just, it blows us away every time, basically, and all the adults that work with them. So this is an example of a child and his team. So usually the children work in teams of 3, and his team were working on the theme of mobility and wanted to tackle drunken driving, which caused a lot of accidents on the streets of Nairobi. And they came up with a set of traffic lights and an alarm and a movement sensor so that would alert others to the danger of drunken drivers. And then they built that prototype, which would need to be scaled up, of course. This is also on the theme of food. These children wanted to tackle the combination of food waste and children who didn't have enough access to nutrition by an app and a robot, which would bring food before it was thrown away to children who needed it. And this was on the theme of water. These children chose to tackle flooding, and their idea was to come up with a pavement stone that instead of the water having to flow away from it, the water could flow through the stone, the pavement stone, or stoeptegel in Dutch, and then get filtered, cleaned, collected in a big box or aquarium underneath, and then pumped back up to be drinking. And this invention has actually been prototyped at scale and installed in Amsterdam West. There's a picture of us launching it at a big urban planning conference last year. And other ways that the children's inventions go beyond, you know, them having this amazing learning experience is being presented at conferences or expert panels relevant to the theme the children's idea is on, or being taken on as advice to municipalities. And every year we publish a report with children's inventions, concerns, and their requests to policymakers. On the kind of skill building side of things, the skills the children learn in this program is very much mapped to OECD's 2030 Future of Education work, also to the Sustainable Development Goals learning objectives as described by UNESCO, and the World Economic Forum's Future Skills for Employment. So they're really the kind of complex problem solving, creative thinking abilities that, yeah, children don't usually get to learn, or maybe until they get to university. So a few comments on the impact so far. So in the last 3 years, we've gone from 2,000 to 65,000 children. We've trained 700 teachers. The program is in 45 countries. We've translated it into 10 languages, and then the 3 reports that I just mentioned, which we've published. And the children achieve the skills, knowledge on the SDG they're working on. So if they're working on the theme of water, or single-use plastic, or mobility in their city, or biodiversity, they develop their creative thinking and problem solving, ability to collaborate, which apparently is #1 request from employers for their new employees, technological literacy, and changemaker and agency, the theme that I started at the beginning, that we need to increase children's agency, that they can tell us what they think needs to happen in the world. And now we have a short video which we made last week for the report, which we just brought out, and we'll put the link in the chat so that you can download it. And this video gives a little idea of the report. It's just 1 minute long. Thanks. So now we're at a more interactive part, where everybody gets to meet in 2 rounds of breakout rooms, our special guests. So we have 3 children, a teacher, and 2 of our partners here for you to meet. And I'll just introduce them briefly so you know approximately who is in the breakout rooms. So we have 3 children. Obviously, we have to walk our talk. We want to hear from children themselves. So Maintje, Delobi, Donna, and Breno have agreed to assist us this afternoon. Maintje came up with an open podium app. Delobi Donna is actually one of the inventors that I showed earlier, who was working on the food waste, food nutrition solution. Breno has been in a number of our programs and also got to present to the local mayor on sustainability last February. We had really a lot of fun there together. So they can tell you about what they came up with, but also their role or concerns that they have. Thank you so much, Victor, for getting up so early in the morning. He's all the way from California. And he, at 17 years old, already started his own organization for social innovation for young people. So to us, an example of what can happen when you give young people a chance at an early age to engage. And Margreet, thank you for joining us. She's an expert teacher working in Amsterdam Zuidoost with immigrant and refugee children. And together we made a special version of the Designathon method to teach Dutch to newcomers. So she'll be talking about that. And Annika is a long-term collaborator. We do 2 very big projects together this year in 5 countries, and Corona has of course stymied our efforts a little bit, but not deterred. We'll continue in September, and it's all about children as change makers, tackling in particular the single-use plastic issue, one that a lot of children are really concerned about. And Nancy, thank you for calling in from Tanzania. She's our treasured partner there, where she has both taught a number of other teachers the Designathon method, hosted a number of innovation events, the Global Children's Designathon, and more. Yeah, so all these lovely people are here for you to meet. And Robin is working on the technique there in the background to share everyone into different breakout rooms. So you'll probably be in about I don't know, 6 or 7 people, meeting them. Then we'll come back together, and then you'll get to meet somebody else in a second round.
We're really curious to hear how you thought that was, and to hear from you if you have any insights from your group talk that you would like to share with the rest of the group. So if you would like to share anything, a comment or some insight from the group that you were just in, please put it in the chat so we can ask just a few of you to unmute yourself for a moment.
So thanks, by the way, everyone in my breakout room. Yeah, for me, we just talked and finished when we were moved to this room again, but it goes for Designathon Works and also for Doppler that we work on a global level, but on the other hand, education is very sensitive for the local context. So we were talking about how to set up a global program and still keep your sensitivity to what a local teacher needs. So that, and I just shared a few things that we're doing. So if it is in language or in visuals, or most importantly, looking at learning objectives from teachers, we make it very local. And that's why we also work with a partner like Designathon, knowing in every country what is going on, from a practicality as when the summer holiday starts, from a very insightful point of view, like what does a teacher need in every country and what language really fits them. That is really Designathon's expertise, and then expertise from Doppler is really how to build a campaign around it and to reach as much people as possible. So that mix between local and global is, has been our focus together. So that's an insight from our group.
Yeah, great, good one. Thank you so much, Annika, for sharing. Now I'm really curious to hear about Mijntje's ideas. So maybe, I don't know, Dylan, if you would like to share Mijntje's idea.
Yeah, Mijntje created, her idea is to create an app where children can create performances. So it could be music, it could be dance, they could be reading a story that they wrote. And then it would be accessible to maybe older people who are very isolated. So maybe if they haven't been able to see their family or they're living in an old folks home, they could then use the app to watch the children's performances, which is so nice because it gives the children a podium, but it also gives, you know, a feeling of connection, I think, to older people. And she was explaining at the end that she'd actually been thinking about it, and she thought it would be really cool if you could create a feature where you could put in what music instrument that you would want to hear a performance of, you know? So then you could specifically look for children who are playing the violin, or specifically look to like see children doing dances.
Wow. Oh, I really hope that someone, I don't know, someone in this group maybe, but that someone takes this idea on with Mijntje and develops it, because I'm sure that it would be extremely popular and that it would make a lot of people very happy. So let's see if we can get that idea out there and implement it. That would be great. Love
And
it.
TikTok for grandparents.
Yes. I love all the clapping hands. Thank you, guys. Well, thank you for your input. We would like to bring you into a different breakout group so that you will have the chance to speak to someone else. So that's actually what we're planning to do now, is to move you away from the main session again and into the breakout groups. Great. Great to have you back here in the main session. And of course, once again, we are very curious to hear if if there was anything that triggered your mind from the breakout room or any new insights. So if you have some that you would like to share, please do so in the chat, and maybe we can pick a couple of them to discuss here plenary.
Yes, hi everyone again. Miriam was asking Margreet, she was explaining about what she'd done with Designathon in the classroom, and she'd explained what the short-term impact was, and Miriam was asking her about what's the long-term impact. And one of the things that she mentioned that I thought really made a lot of sense for what we came together for today is that she was saying that you can teach children from a very young age that the actions that they take have a bigger effect than just themselves or their communities. It can have an effect worldwide. So that can be maybe the negative things they do, but of course also the very positive things they do, that it can have a bigger effect. So I thought that was really I thought it was a very beautiful point. So thank you, Margreet.
Thank you so much for sharing. That is a beautiful point. Let's see if we can do one more. So I don't know, Steve, would you like to share from your session?
So Neka at Doppler was sharing a lovely story about the fact that actually you can connect children with other children from different parts of the world. So they might be on a local project, but they connect globally. And actually the power of children getting excited about each other's ideas and how supportive they are of each other. So I think it gives agency to children all over the world as well. And it's children giving children agency. And I thought that was really, really powerful.
Yes, thank you so much. Very powerful indeed. Let me just see. Alexandra, would you like to share?
What I was listening to Victor, who was talking about the opening of minds of children who create small change first and then it becomes bigger. And what it makes me think about is whether we could do the same for adults, or can actually children open the minds up of adults. Let's not forget about either of these communities, and maybe we should be helped by children rather than the other way around.
Yes, definitely, good point. I think it should be one of the lessons learned from this session, right? How much we can learn from children. So thank you so much. I hope you were all inspired in some way in your breakout room. And yeah, so Emer, I would like to move to you again and to see how we can maybe support you in taking your work further.
Excellent. Thanks very much. And just before we do that, can I ask everyone to give all the guest speakers a round of applause? So maybe we can all make loads of noise. Everyone unmute yourself and clap. Yay! Super. Thank you so much for taking the effort, everyone from all over the world, and the children. Maybe you were nervous, and it's so meaningful to connect the generations. So really happy. Thank you. And yeah, now we have a more serious part, perhaps. I would like to show you one slide, kind of the meta view of what we're looking at with this work going forward. This is a diagram of our plans from 2020 to 23. It's more or less what we're doing now, but we really want to streamline our process a bit more, focus on the core process, and have a more, that the journey for the child makes more sense as now it's a little bit hapsnap, to use the Dutch word. It's a little bit ad hoc. We're planning to streamline that process more, actually, with help from Changemakers United via Ashoka. We've been revisiting, and also because of Corona, catapulting us into doing more online work. And from our 40 partners, we also want to focus on 10 and grow them and our relationships with them, so that we can have a deeper reach in a smaller number of countries, as much as we can continue to work around the world. So with these steps, these partners, these processes, on the right you see our target of 1 million change makers, and also the target that more people in society start seeing children as co-creators. And to help us get us there, because if we look towards the end of this year, we'll have reached 100,000 children, and that's really amazing. And we have a lot of fun doing it as well, so can't complain. And at the same time, obviously, we want to reach more children. We want to take this to the next level. So we have some asks for you. Crowd wisdom. You never know who somebody knows and how you might be able to help us. So we've got kind of 3 baskets of ways that you might be able to connect us to somebody who could help us. And the 3 baskets are potential funders. So we're actually looking for 50,000 euros in order to reach 50,000 children, and we need it to improve our platform and produce it in produce the lesson materials sufficiently in the languages, and also build that community of 10 partners. We're looking for potential clients and partners. Clients as in an organization, a company, a purpose-driven company who has an SDG they care about and want to connect that to children. We think we do that very well and could help them. And partners in the sense of NGOs or school networks who already work with children, who would be interested, including our approach to what they're doing. And specifically, we're looking for organizations in India and Finland at the moment, but other countries welcome too. And the 3rd basket is ambassadors. So yeah, famous people or people with a bigger reach than we have, who believe in this mission and would like to use their voice to help us to reach more children, basically. Or platforms that you know of who would be interested in having the children share their ideas. Platforms that are already working on similar themes and want to start including the younger generation. And the way we want to go about doing this is we made a form with a couple of questions, and we're going to put the link for this form in the chat, and the request if everyone would spend 3 or 4 minutes and fill in that form with whatever suggestions you have for us, and then we can follow up on all that next week.
Thank you all for all your inputs, and very helpful for Emer and her team, I'm sure. So thank you so much. And this form will stay online, of course, so feel free to fill it in at a later moment if you have any, if there are any ideas that pop up. And also feel free to get in touch directly with Emer and her team. Emer shared her email address in the chat. So we actually have a bit of time left in today's session, so I would like to give you the opportunity to ask any questions you may have for Emer.
One question. When I was looking at, we have a whole bunch of children and we have ideas, and then the ideas are helped to be brought to fruition. How do you handle the sort of competition or disappointment, that children may have when they produce an idea that didn't get sort of celebrated? So that was something that was worrying me a little bit.
Yeah.
That I would like to ask about.
That's a really good question. It's something that we've really struggled with, because we did a lot of events initially and we just celebrated everybody, and then anytime we tried to get press, they were like, yeah, but just send us the winners, and we're like, we don't have winners. All ideas are potentially good. And then we started interviewing the children about how they felt about competitions. And they were like, no, bring on the competitions. We want a chance to win. And we also did some research on the children who hadn't won. So what we do is we call them uitblinkers is the Dutch word. So it's more like extra attention or special recommendation rather than winners. Getting to present was the answer we got, that was relevant and that they were taken seriously. And yeah, it was less of a big deal than we were worried about in any case. And yeah, it's like they can see themselves as well. Some ideas are either better, and we also have a couple of categories. We have categories like the prototype is well produced. Children worked very well together is also a category. Showed empathy for a specific group, and an idea that could potentially be used in multiple places. So then you could also see that you can kind of grade yourself in different ways. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I saw another question from Rudiana. I'm not sure, Rudina. Sorry about my pronunciation. She says, hello, Emer. Thank you for this great overview. Can you please say if you work with refugee and vulnerable communities in the Middle East?
Yeah, great question. We work with a number of vulnerable communities, not in the Middle East, but in Mexico. So we have had the experience of adapting the methodology for children really on the margins of society, which is, you know, obviously a different dynamic than being a refugee. But the children in Mexico are all third generation kind of garbage picker families. So they have very little education or support at home. And the method has been adapted to not only the language, but also how it's incorporated for them. We also worked with children from slum areas in Nairobi. We've also worked with very rural children in Ghana. And there are some impediments talking about the technologies, like if you just rock up and say, oh, a drone, could you use a drone? You know, not everyone's going to know what that is. So you definitely need to be sensitive to that. But we've been able to do it with we even did it with autistic children. Yeah, so obviously it needs some adaptation, but we're quite convinced that the universal quality of caring about something, having an idea, and making something to communicate it is so basically intrinsic human that it can work anywhere.
Thanks, Emer. I also see a question from Olga. She says, Emer, what has inspired you to do this wonderful work?
Thanks, Olga. Yeah, no, that's a good question too, of course. Okay, so when I was like 5 and then 8 and everything, and then I was trying to save the world in my little way, and putting on theatre shows to collect money for the homeless people. And then when I was about 11, I wrote a plan to the government telling them how they needed to do their transportation system for the city, that they should put a light tram rail instead of all those cars and traffic jams and stuff. So I had a whole bunch of kind of crazy plans, and I didn't really feel like anyone was interested in my contribution. In fact, they weren't. They told me to go back to school and come back when I was more knowledgeable or older. Yeah, so it's definitely part of this work is me knowing that I had the wish to contribute all those years, and that I'm totally not the only child who feels like that, and they should be given a chance. And so many times if we evaluate the process with children and ask them to grade, like, what do they like about it? Okay, they adore making things because that's just so much fun. But equal high is being allowed to think of my own idea. And I think that speaks to, yeah, like, yes, that's a great experience, but also like, hey, are you serious that that's the only time you get to do that? And what kind of society? So children should be allowed to come up with their ideas more. Yeah.
Yes, great, thanks. And maybe just a short answer, Emma. There's a question from Steve, if there's a place where all of these ideas are showcased?
Yeah, we're working on that as well. So what we've done is made a selection in the report that we put the link on, if people can see that. So what we've got in here is, oops. So per country, there's a page of the 3 best ideas, and those ideas get chosen by the children themselves and the facilitators. So that's a paper database, also digital PDF to download. We've started a number of times, and what we've got now with the online version, of course, is we've got the drawings of the children. So want to do it, haven't had the capacity yet, on the to-do list would be the answer.
Okay, thank you. Olivier would like more details on the plans with the Changemakers Academy.
Right, so that's actually a very beginning idea. But we would like to bridge kind of the gap between our age group, which is 8 to 12, and then say kind of the 12 to 14, because there seems to be programs for kind of 15 to 18-year-olds. And what we're seeing is in our programs is children who love doing it, and then they go on and you know, do ballet or horse riding or something. But there's children who keep coming back and go, yeah, I want to be an inventor. I've got these ideas, and you know, this is part of who they are. So we would love to create a space, and we're hoping to collaborate with other organizations in the space who have programs. And yeah, we have like a dream of having 100 children who in different parts of the world get mentored by people like Victor or other Ashoka fellows, get supported to, yeah, take that path in life.
Yeah, great, thank you. And so we also have a question here. Yeah, so I think that that's related to that. So if you have considered teaching older children.
We've done it with 12 to 15-year-olds, and it totally works, and it's totally fine, and it totally makes sense, and they should have this program too. We just chose to focus, yeah, more for capacity reasons, and secondly because there's something about the age of 10 that if you get these kind of experiences sufficiently between the kind of 7 to 10, you the higher chance of you keeping the belief in your creative potential, because it doesn't go away, it just fades to the background. Yeah. So those 2 reasons, but we've done it with loads of ages, teachers, everyone's creative.
Perfect. And maybe a last question. So what happens from Nora? What happens with the prototypes of the children after the workshop? Are they really the idea? So are they turned into real prototypes? How does that work?
So sometimes we have a trajectory at the beginning where we already know we've got commitment from our collaborating partners, in this case like Dopper, to take one of the ideas to scale. So there's loads of ideas and a selection process, and one of them will be made and implemented. We did that with the library here in Amsterdam. They are building the library of the future, and one of the children's ideas through 10 school competition is being implemented. In some cases, we present with the children a selection of ideas. So if it's about mobility, carbon neutral mobility to the city, we'll lobby like mad to the the mayors, the lawmakers, to listen to the children's idea on this topic. So we've tried a variety of methods, and maybe it's good to say that some of the children's ideas could be something like putting solar panels on all the schools in Holland. So that's a great idea, but obviously not something that we have the money in our pocket to do tomorrow. So because we asked them to think so big, there's a path to implementation. So we also work on kind of the being heard, being input and inspiration to the policymakers as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Emer. And thank you for all your questions. If they're not answered, but still in the chat, we will make sure to get back to you after the session. And so thank you so much, Emer, and to the rest of your team, of course, for being here with us today and sharing your story. And yeah, I really hope that many of you are inspired. I am for sure to look at children differently and to listen to them in a different way, and to really include them as, you know, relevant stakeholders when it comes to designing the future. So whether it's in policy making or innovation, just really looking at them as a great and unique source of creativity. Let me take this opportunity to thank all of you so much for participating today, and to Emer again and her team. It's been a great session, and very happy you were able to join and spend your Friday afternoon with us. And this is the end of the session, and for now I just want to wish you all a very good day and a good weekend, and I hope to see you all soon. Bye.